published in a collection of short stories in Ireland, and I hope you enjoy it. It was different and the same every time it happened. There was a certain choreography of phrases and movements that led to it all, and she could tell immediately if it had been successful. Understanding wasn't a part of the process, but she had come to learn some of what it took to make it work through trial and error. It wasn't just the similarities in their appearance. It was something about the physical proximity, the closeness to the origin that she knew made it possible to occur. All of those at the same time, and mainly the feeling. Something about the sensation when she was around them, something that drew her to them. Also, she intuitively knew that it wasn't only up to her. She would present a candidate, and he would determine if there was enough of a connection for him to use their seed and grow in her. As long as it worked, she didn't really care. It would begin always with the hunt, the quest for a suitor. His death, always premature and unexpected, made it easier somehow being a moderately attractive young woman in search of a kinky adventure. It made her choke her own laughter somehow as she looked at the blinded man that she was guiding in the darkness. They'd never had any idea how kinky indeed it was going to be, the poor bastard. This one had jumped at her because of her grayish eyes and his annoying habit of constantly adding in fact in every sentence, at the beginning, middle, of end, made sense or not. Sometimes it had been their mustache, sometimes their protective way around her, or maybe their favorite spot in the park, the tiniest hints of mannerisms that would remind her of him. You never knew what he'd find himself drawn to. She had once asked him if she was that picky with the women he brought her when it was his turn. He refused to talk about it. The playful pecks and the explicit comments had been more or less memorized, and were carried out, inalterably so, as she led the way deeper through the man-made paths in between the lines and blocks of memorial stones. She had learned that the best way to get them to not care about the place was to make them so into her that they wouldn't even notice. They reached the hill she knew like the back of her hand, just as in fact's palm smacked her ass. She feigned finding it funny and bit her tongue in disgust. Sometimes she just really wanted to get over it, to get it over with. But it wasn't a bad sign. He had had his own share of moments like that with women in his own youth. Before she had been born, he had told her once, the only reason why she went along with it. She stood ceremonially in front of the remainder of his existence, the ultimate memento of the dead, symbolic to anyone and devoid of any meaning, for those who care about the person that used to be the name engraved. And when those who care are gone, where do the memories go? Where do the memories go? Do people just vanish when all of those are gone? Did they ever exist? Aren't we all, in the end, just that, unfaithful memories? That was the whole point of what they were doing, him and her, always existing together, more than together, out of and for each other, a never-ending cycle of renewing reminiscences, the only belief she had left, their bond that would continuously transcend time and death. Violating the generational order in the end going back to it, taking turns at being taken care of, at sharing the tricks of navigating through life, of being happy with each other and solely with each other, the knowledge of being her the one that started it, originally the youngest, of her being the one empowered to end it, he'd go along forever, as he had been doing, because he thought it was her choice to cut it off, as if she ever would. At some point, she had had a friend, a good friend. Years into the friendship, she realized that this friend was a boy. Soon after that, it became obvious to her that she wanted the boyfriend to be her boyfriend. And with the sex that didn't happen came the epiphany that a relationship actually taking place between the two of them would make her happy. In the sober, satisfied, calm way that you would want to build your life around. And she fantasized about it. She saw it in front of her. The sassy remarks and the tension of skirting between the friends' lovers' line brought to its limits, not needing to back off. The stiffness in the brush of their arms turned into deliberate and slow touches that only familiarity of a desire that has been consented to be unexplored can evolve into. She saw themselves living their lives next to each other and together once the lights are off. She envisioned the future she could jump into, and she liked it. At that time, where there had been a choice to be made, she had gently cupped the locket hanging between her breasts, and she had felt the boy's gaze and the life that she would be giving up rushed into her consciousness. She would miss him so much, too much. She had already been through it all and refused to go all the way. It will happen again if she flirted enough with renouncing him. Not the boyfriend, not the future, but him. Everything could be given up but him. It would eventually sink, not having him ever again, and it would become unbearable again. It is said that time brings relief. It is also said that they all have lied, and truth is, she wouldn't risk it. She deliberately had opened the locket. The question didn't take long to be asked. It was all the explanation she could give. This is my father and me, when I was a baby. And that was true. Oh, this one's my mother and my brother, and that wasn't. Still, as far as she could go. He could also know that she fucked random guys in cemeteries, but that he knew already, and he thought it was some sort of disturbed fetish that he'd do with you in a heartbeat, if that's what it was all about. Of course it wasn't. She let him believe it, because going into the explanation was by far too obviously pointless, and he wouldn't be able to tell why. Why didn't she bring him to where she stood now? First, she didn't want him to end up just being any other. Also, he wasn't at all like her father. She had read once that women ultimately look for someone like their fathers as their life companions. Yet it was her friend, nothing at all like her father, that reminded her that giving up on him was a choice she could make, even if she wouldn't. Just so she could get rid of the uncomfortable doubt, she started to push him away, and eventually she would leave without a trace when she had managed to get pregnant, like she had done countless times before. He wouldn't try to find her, not hard enough, and the uncertainty of what it could have been would fade away. So much she knew. The pain of never having him again, she didn't. There, under the headstone, she made ever-chattering facts lay down and kept him blinded. She closed her eyes and left her hands roam around his body in a dispassionate way. Her acquaintance with that movement made her nauseous. Skillfully unleashing sighs and shivers of excitement from the body underneath her, feeling the muddy wetness of the mixed clay and grass in contact with her skin, strongly holding his hands to prevent him from touching him. Just let me use you like I want to, she'd say. God, that's in fact hot, she'd answer. She wasn't lying. That was, after all, exactly what she was doing. And so she did, just as she started at her own last name carved in the stone. She laid on her back, steadying her breath. The stranger had already untied the blindfold and was yelling at her an extensive array of adjectives, starting with crazy and increasingly less pleasant. The order varied with the different men, but the essence of the scene was always the same. He left in a rush, never turning his back, infecting once and again. It always took place in a very similar way to how it had gone this time. But she had the easy way. She could just shut whoever out and still have him back. She didn't want to think of what he had to do to get her back. He didn't talk about it. She didn't recall a mother, not since the first time. She sighed and waited. It didn't take long for her to feel the subtle sensation of not being alone anymore. She placed her hand on her stomach and traced the golden letters of the first name above her. Roughly 9 months after, she held the newborn in her arms and recognized the affinity of all the years that had passed and those to come. The bond that already existed, slowly relocating and strengthening at once. She savored the missing him being over and just wished that they could fast forward into the years where language and emotion will go back and forth smoothly between them. The years where mutual understanding and individual memory will be at their best. Still, she gave the baby a genuine smile, the one she used to give as a child, and just sunk into the relief and happiness of having managed to make it this far yet another time. "It's you and I again, kiddo," she said, just like her father used to say. Thank you so much.